So, hallo, liebe Metal Hammer Leser und Maximum Metal DVD Zuschauer. Wir sitzen hier in München mit Rex Brown und Jimmy Bauer von den Mächtigen Down. Sie sind nicht nur eine der letzten wenigen Supergroups, sondern auch eine große Band, die speziell durch ihre Einflüsse von Southern Rock gepaart mit Heavy Metal in der Gunst der Leute sehr weit vorne liegt. Und deswegen haben wir uns gedacht, wir sprechen mit den beiden über Southern Rock im Speziellen. Rex, can you name an album which you would classify to the genre Southern Rock, which is imminent to you and very special for you and very important?
Tres Hombres, ZZ Top.
Good record.
Grew up from Texas. Yeah, heard them on AM radio. Grew up on a small little peanut farm till I was about 10 years old. And so all you could get was, you didn't have FM radio back in the day. And like, you know, ZZ Top was like coming out the same time, a little bit before Skynyrd came out. So, you know, definitely ZZ Top. Because of, Texas has a lot of blues in it, you know.
And for you?
Lynyrd Skynyrd, Nothing Fancy. It's I think it's like their third or fourth record, and it's got just some really good songs on it. Am I Losing, Cheating Woman, Country Boy, and just to me sums up Southern rock in one album.
Okay. What can you remember when the first time you came across this record? Was it like your older brother or your cousin, or I don't know?
No, it was actually in the early '90s. I mean, I always liked Skynyrd, but never had really heard anything but what they would play on the radio, you know. So was touring with I Hate God in a van, you know, and got nothing to do but listen to music. I bought Nothing Fancy and Give Me Back My Bullets on a cassette. Both one record on each side, and this never came out of the cassette player, man. Just I was blown away by their songwriting, and blown away by songs that weren't on the radio, you know, the obscure ones, you know.
And with you and the ZZ Top album, do you remember how you came across that?
No, I don't, because all I heard was on the radio, and then I moved into a big city where I'd met this guy, this cat that turned me on to all kinds of stuff. He was my age and lived down the street. And I want to say at that point, we were listening to, I want to say Street Survivor. And that, actually at that time, at that period, which would have been 76.
77, yeah.
So, I mean, we listened to that, and that was like, you know, we were listening to all kinds of different stuff during that period of time, you know, from, you know, the just good rock, you know, solid Aerosmith kind of, you know, and I was like, what, 10 or 11 years old, you know? Yeah. So I'm kind of glad I got to grow up in that kind of environment instead of missing it by, you know, like I think a lot of kids these years have like missed a whole generation of music, you know, because they've, I don't know, it's just, a lot of stuff that we were listening to in the 70s is kind of coming full circle. Especially, you know, I go back and I listen to all those old 70s records, and not necessarily, it doesn't have to be Southern rock, because I think everything comes naturally in music from a blues. Take Led Zeppelin, for instance. That they were from England, but they listened to a lot of old American blues, you know, South Delta, you
Howlin' Wolf.
Yeah, and all those cats. So all these bands, when you talk about Southern rock, you're talking all blues influenced bands. But also, there's also different down. There's also the caliber of the prog rock and the metal rock that all of you know, the five guys in the band and the influences that we have between the five of us and four, you know, very prominently distinct bands come from, and it's not a super group, it is just a group. of 5 individuals playing rock and roll.
In my introduction, I said that you're one of the last real supergroups, if you want to put it that way, you know, because nowadays there are a lot of bands which are entitled supergroups which are not.
Yeah, they suck. They suck.
You name it. And you just mentioned the Lynyrd Skynyrd album as which sums up Southern rock as such. When I get you right, or which is, let's say,
It's the most popular.
Well, growing up, my dad listened to like what they call outlaw country. Willie Nelson, David Allan Coe, Hank Williams Jr., Jerry Jeff Walker, Leon Russell, stuff like that. Really great songwriters. And Waylon Jennings, of course. And that had a big impact on me as a kid. But, you know, in my teenage years, got into like more like Kiss and stuff like that, you know, and you kind of forget about what you listen to, you know. I was like, man, I'm not in the country, you know. And it really came back, you know. I mean, growing up, going to rodeos as a kid, seeing Willie Nelson live as a kid, and just doing things that the culture of the South does, you know, go camping, hunting, fishing, you know, and I think what Rex is trying to say is that you know, to be labeled a Southern rock band, you know, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. We are from the South and we are a rock band.
yes.
But there's a lot of different elements, and it's to me it's a lifestyle, you know.
Mm-hmm. And now we come directly to Down. You already mentioned a lot of albums, but when it comes to your personal, let's say, musical development and personal approach concerning songwriting for Down, what would you name some artists or maybe some musicians that have a vital part on your personal approach to songwriting?
When we first got Down together, we were all really starting to get into like Witchfinder General, St. Vitus, The Obsessed, you know, bands like that, and Trapeze, you know, and that we not wanted to be like that, but that, you know, but yeah, we did, you know.
As some sort of inspiration, so to say, maybe.
Yeah, you know, just good songwriting, good, you know, vocals where you sing, you know, it's not screaming. Because at that time, you know, we were all in bands, and all our singers, you know, even Phil, you know, was doing that as well. And just the idea of, you know, having a band that we could express ourselves of this new music we had gotten into, you know. So, yeah, bands like that.
You know, I tried to ask you that in the beginning, and you couldn't really answer where you came across those records for the first time. But can you remember any, let's say, kind of incident or story where you really, you know, in retrospect, you said, well, yeah, this was kind of, I don't know, a concert, or somebody gave you, you said you bought that tape back then.
Yeah, no.
I mean, some kind of special anecdote or story?
Yeah, Mike Williams, the singer for I Hate God, in 1985, 86, gave me a cassette, and on one side it had Trouble, and on the other side it had The Obsessed. And Pepper turned me on to the Melvins, you know, like around 86, and those were big impact things for me, you know. I was like, wow. It was the band I'd heard in my head all those years, you know, and to finally find it, you know, and then it's like, wow, there are people doing what I hear, you know. So, and then jump on board, you know. Just start doing it as well, you know. I mean, I can't speak for Rex, but that's,
Yeah.
for me, that's.
What? Oh, for me, it was nothing but 70s hard rock, you know. Is there one record in particular that really blew my mind? Yeah, but there was stuff that came before that blew my mind, like, you know, Aerosmith Rocks and Get Your Wings and shit like that. Okay, I'm the eldest of the band. And so anyway, I was more influenced by that. Not the Southern thing was cool, but dude, you got to remember there were so many bands back then that were so killer, you know. that it was all influenced into a melting pot in your head that that by the time you started actually, I started playing professionally when I was 17 years old. So you're influenced by a lot of things, but I remember having, in particular, an 8-track, the Masters of Reality, that was kept on me all the time, when I was 10, 11 years old. And that record was it came out in 72.
Yeah, spooky record.
But it was killer, and anyway, that one of those things are like,
Yeah.
and then the first time I really got into Zeppelin, I was taking serious amounts of LSD and shit, so it's definitely cool.
What I was just thinking about is, since you already mentioned those two bands a couple of times, there's Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, especially for Down, which band of those and is, let's say, more vital to the Down sound, if you might put it that way? Or is there no, let's say, one over the other, so to say? Is it like similar?
Well, for me, both drummers in Bill Ward and John Bonham both had their own unique style and a good swing and a good way of playing the blues, and so it's kind of hard to say which one. Zeppelin wasn't so much of an influence for me for Down.
Okay.
Back then as it is now.
Okay.
Back then it was more Sabbath and and like I said, those bands we were getting into and stuff like that.
I joined the band.
When Rex got in the band in 2002, it added an it's like John Paul Jones walked in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And Down needed that. We needed that element. That it was the last piece of the puzzle. So that was very important for Down and for the progression of Down.
They're both from fucking Birmingham, for fuck's sake. So, a lot of great music came out of Birmingham, but, like I said before, what we do is we take everything and put it through the blender of everything that we have, and there's not another Southern rock band that sounds like we do. Any way you splice it, when it comes down to it, Down is Down.
When you just named in the 70s and how many huge and awesome bands were back then, do you have sometimes in mind that Down records and your live performances may, let's say, draw some kids back to the music back then and how things started, and that they're not, let's say, into emo bands all the time, just to put it like this?
Man, to me, that's our whole deal. We like to give kids today a little taste of what we grew up with. Like you go to the concert and you buy the tour book, and you sit down and you're so excited. And they come out and great musicians, and they play and it's everything you've ever dreamed of and more.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think a little of that's been lost.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I mean, if we promoting heavy blues all over the world.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
You mentioned it already that you're from the South, and which is important. Is there any chance for, let's say, a band which comes from Massachusetts, I don't know, to have the same amount of credibility to play the sound you play with?
No.
Not at all.
Nope.
No, it's like I said, it's a way of life, man.
And their credibility, no. Can they sound like something and emulate it? Yeah, they can emulate it all they want to.
Yeah.
Do they really know where it comes from? No.
Going back, it's a way of life, man. It's just it's how we were all raised, and I guarantee all of our parents listened to a little bit of country here and there, and good, I just don't. I can't see a band from Massachusetts knowing how to fucking cook a pig, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And not that has anything to do with music, but it does.
In the end.
And it does in the attitude that you project, you know?
All right, that's it so far. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, liebe Freunde und Maximum Metal DVD-Zuschauer, das war hier die illustre Gesprächsrunde mit Jimmy Bauer und Rex Brown von den mächtigen Down. Wir bedanken uns für euer Interesse und wünschen noch viel Spaß mit dem weiteren Programm.